You can always.
All right, admitting people.
You can't see my windows, can you?
Nope.
Good.
Hello, everybody.
Hi Heidi. Hi Carrie.
Hey, how's it going? Hi, Sharon.
Hi, I'm doing half the pictures I'm going to show later. I'll have you or thanks to you.
Well, good. I like that.
So we are going to give it a couple seconds here for some more people to join.
Carrie, I think this is the first time you've been to one of our Alliance meetings.
Yes, it is. I
Hi, Carrie.
texted Meg last night. I said, okay, I have this on my calendar. Remind me what it is.
She's like, what is it? I was like, that's our Alliance gathering.
Hi Beth. Hi Tony. Hi Kathy. We're gonna give it a few more minutes, probably about 2 more minutes, just to let people get shuffled in, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I was muted.
Hello. So yeah, we don't have a lot. We don't have anybody coming in, so I think we could get started, Jordan.
What'd you say?
I don't think we don't have any more folks coming in, so I think we can go ahead and start.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. If you haven't been to one of our Alliance gatherings before, just let us introduce ourselves. My name is Jordan. This is Meg. We are co-founders of Art Against Ageism, and we are an alliance of artists and activists that come together to create art that tackles ageism and promotes age positivity. So we do these Alliance gatherings once a month, and we highlight someone that's doing amazing work in the space. And so today we are meeting with, if my screen will let me go to, oh, here we go. We are meeting with Sharon Sullivan, who is the VP of Brand Experience and Head of Conferences at LeadingAge, and we'll be talking about tackling ageism via art and creativity. But before we begin, we just have a few housekeeping rules. Just make sure you mute your microphone just to allow for everyone to be able to hear everything. We don't want any toilets flushing or any birds in the background. Also, please make sure you raise your hand so that we can make sure that everyone's heard and that everyone gets a chance to speak. As far as chat etiquette goes, make sure you introduce yourself in the chat. There may be, again, as a part of this alliance, yes, we are highlighting one person and talking about their art and what they do, but we also want everyone to get a chance to really connect with each other and kind of talk about what they're doing and why they're interested in either joining the alliance or what they're working on. And then lastly, just respect each other's time. Don't take too long talking. Even I don't want to be talking too long. The only person we want really to be talking that long is Sharon today. And so that kind of ends our housekeeping. And so without further ado, I'll let Meg get started, but I do want to share one thing, and this is kind of going into what we're going to be talking about today. And you may not know who this is, but actually I love that Meg's gonna kind of start all this in because Meg went crazy for this.
Went crazy. I don't know about that, if I went, but it was sort of an interesting happenstance at LeadingAge. Welcome everyone and hello. And to start with this is a photo from what is called our Own Your Age photo booth that happened at LeadingAge, thanks to Sharon. She will probably, maybe we'll touch on it, explain it at some point. And that photo is of a bachelor contestant who happened to be at LeadingAge working with an exhibitor. So I just happened to run into him, and it took me a few minutes to recognize him because I happened to watch those shows. So anyway, Sharon,
I did not know that.
Yeah. So we'll let Sharon, I'll let you queue up your slides if you'd like to, Sharon. we'd like to start with just asking you, Sharon, if you could tell us a little bit about your career, how long you've been with LeadingAge, and what led you to this role.
Sure. Well, thanks for being here, everyone. I was really honored to be invited to this group because I'm a huge fan of the organization, and I never considered myself an artist, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And it's flattering to be considered among you. So thanks so much for inviting me. So, well, I graduated with a marketing degree a very, very long time ago, and I was working actually in an ad agency. Didn't know anything about aging, didn't know anything about associations. I went from that ad agency and it actually had an event division, which I found to be intriguing as sort of a young professional. And then I started working for a fine jewelry magazine early in my career, and we decided to start an event. The event kind of exploded. It became the biggest retail jewelry show in the world. It had like 2,000 exhibiting booths its first year. It was huge. And it was one of those cases where you're 25 years old and you're kind of like thrown into an opportunity that kind of changed your life and sort of gave you direction for your career. So I was suddenly in the event world. I met my husband and got engaged, and he was in the Marine Corps at the time, and he got stationed in Washington, D.C., and I needed to leave my dream job and go find another job. Like I said, I didn't know anything about associations. I didn't even know what one was, but apparently Washington, D.C. is the headquarters of them. And so this is going to age me, but some of you may remember this, but there was no Indeed or ZipRecruiter. So when you needed to find a job in another city, I would get the Washington Post on Tuesdays. The Sunday Post I would get on Tuesday. And if I really thought I had a shot at a job, or I thought it was good for me, I would FedEx my resume and spend the $12 or something to FedEx my resume there. And I saw what was the American Association of Homes and Services for the Aging, which was LeadingAge's old name. And it was actually for the marketing position for events, and I applied for it. And I didn't get that job because it was filled, but I got the logistics job doing sort of meeting planning. And that was in 1994. This summer will be my 30th year at LeadingAge. And I have done a lot of different things at LeadingAge, always conferences, but I've done education. I've been in charge of exhibits and sales and sponsorship. And there was a little area for about 5 years where I did the marketing for the entire association in addition to conferences. And then my husband sort of controlled my career again because he got transferred to Chicago when I had conferences, education, sales, and marketing at the time. And I went to the president and COO and said, I just don't think I can do the marketing for the association, not in DC. This was, of course, pre-COVID. Now that would probably not even come into my head. Of course, I could do it remotely, but at that time, we felt like you had to be in the city. And so, and so I have the job that I have now, which is what I do now is I'm VP of Brand Experience and head of conferences. So I get to spend all my time on the thing that I love the most, which is face-to-face and virtual events. And I kind of look back on that period of my career and think, would LeadingAge's events be where they are now if I was spread so thin and I didn't have the time to sort of concentrate on that? And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm the happiest I've ever been, because I'm doing, I'm sort of writing with my right hand. The other sort of little piece of my job that I do now, or it's not so little, but I help a lot of the state associations kind of in a consulting role. When we became LeadingAge and all of that, and they sort of joined us and became LeadingAge Kansas and LeadingAge Kentucky, it was really important that brand value, that whether you were attending the national meeting or you were attending the meeting in a state, that you had that LeadingAge brand experience. So part of what I do is I create tools and resources and sort of brand experience elements that they can use at their conferences. So that's another really big part of my job and really super fun. So yeah, so that's the journey.
Can you please show us an example of the wonderful work you do in the job that is the job of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, hold on. Trying to find share, guys.
Oh, down at the bottom, it should be green. Share screen.
Oh yeah, got it. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna start. Well, thank you all for letting me share my work. So one of the things that we'll talk about in a little bit is we try to create a sense of place. So we really try to totally transmit people to someplace else. So we find that when people, even though they're existing inside the convention center for 3 or 4 days, we want them to feel like they're in the city. So this is a little example of what we did in Denver in 2022. We felt like when you think of Denver, you think of being outside, and we knew people were going to be in white walls. And so we partnered with Heidi Wagner, who we have worked with so many times, who is such a big part of our beautiful photography that we use in so many of our activations and our environments. But we did a photo shoot in California at a LeadingAge member, and we took all outdoor shots. And so we blew them up, huge portrait. And then we literally brought in all the furniture we did was outdoor furniture. We partnered with actually Art Against Ageism, and we'll talk a little bit about the spark of how those kind of things happen. But they had the idea of doing the aging trees, which fit in so perfectly. So that's a little bit about Denver. Here's another little shot of that. This is last year in Chicago. And one of the unique things about this area was when we walked into the convention center, one of the things that we had to deal with is the cement floor. And that is a huge, huge space that we had to have registration, and to carpet it would have been about $25,000 to $30,000. So I knew we had to make this cement floor look intentional. So we said, well, we're in Chicago. What if we created an urban loft gallery space? And we sort of took everybody, not in a convention center, but really in an art gallery in an inner city. And that's what we did. And we worked with local members to share their art. We worked with some other members to actually paint on motorcycle jackets. We did lots of art, like everywhere you went, there was art. And then I can show you a couple other, here's a project we did there. So this was a mosaic furniture piece that some residents in one of our member communities did. And they did it as an intergenerational project. So they did it with a couple scout troops over a course of a few months. And all of the mosaics are about the state of Illinois. And one of the special things we do every year is we try to make a lasting impact in the city. So when we go into a destination, we don't want to just meet in the convention center for three or 4 days and then leave. We want to sort of change and leave an impact. So this was our gift to the city of Chicago. This furniture will actually be on permanent collection in McCormick Place. They have a beautiful art collection there, and this will be functional art that will stay there. McCormick Place gets about 3 million visitors a year. Many of them are all different age groups. And so this is an intergenerational furniture grouping done by an intergenerational group of residents and students doing it. And then the furniture has questions embedded in it that people of different ages can have a really powerful, insightful conversation. So it kind of is a full circle project. So that was one of the things we did last year. We also last year did something we called Lovelock Bridge. So you might be familiar with Lovelock Bridges. They're in Paris and New York and in a lot of major cities. And again, looking at the fact that we're in this urban art gallery, we really wanted to like have people come in and immediately have sort of an engagement. So first impressions count is my message with this one. And that is, so people got a lock when they entered into the convention center space, and we told them to hook their lock on the bridge as a sign of their commitment and their sort of realization that they're leaving all of the stresses of their life behind and their work, and they're sort of entering into the leading age space where everyone belongs and everybody shares and they're ready for that experience. So that was that one. This is an example of seize every opportunity for a medium to sort of tell your story and to show your art. So one of the projects we did was again, urban, sort of like playing in with Chicago. We took motorcycle jackets and we had a group of residents and staff paint them, and then we auctioned them off. We took that artwork, and that artwork was used in a lot of places. The pictures that you saw in registration actually were the residents, artists wearing those jackets. But here we used them on the podium, even for podium wraps, like in the education sessions. So again, we seized every opportunity to display art. So this is the message around this one, is sort of to take the time to find the hidden treasures. And they can be everywhere. Like ideas come from everywhere, experience ideas and I think kind of what I do is I'm more of a curator of those ideas. See, 99% of the ideas don't come from me. They actually come from a variety of sources. And so this was a really beautiful one where Meg's story on The Bachelor reminds me of this one, by the way. This is Hunter. Hunter was a finalist on The Voice. She somebody called me and happened to like connect with her on Instagram and found out that she works with veterans who have PTSD. She sort of talks to them. She gets to know their story, and then she writes a song with them and for them about their sort of experiences. That is a kind of form of healing. And she did this with an elder vet, and her name was Bunny, and they came and performed in Denver. Again, sort of performance art, but definitely art, and sort of, let all those ideas come to you and take the time to find those kind of special things that can be incredibly moving. This one's theme is around don't be afraid to be edgy. So we did a booth one time on sex, drugs, and rock and roll in retirement communities. And we actually had Dr. Ruth come, and this was the picture you see up here is the booth. That was a very experiential learning booth in our trade show. And we also had a DJ, and we had the audience, the entire Leading Age audience, crowdsource the soundtrack of the conference. Meg and Jordan were probably listening to that most of the time that they were in the booth, because it was right in their area in Chicago. And that could have been really edgy. I mean, that could have gone, who knows what people request, right? But don't be afraid to be edgy, because it's those kind of moments that are really powerful. So make it interactive. These are just a couple things we've done interactively. That top one is actually a photo mosaic where people took their pictures, and then their pictures ended up sort of making a mural at the end. And then this one was another one we did and both of these, by the way, were for the public, and they're examples of that make an impact where we leave a gift behind. So this was Celebrate Age was an example of that. And then the one that is at the lower picture, we actually had a graphic illustrator sort of ask the public a question about ageism, about positive aging. And then as they answered her, she actually sort of graphic illustrated their answers. And so over the course of the week, at the end of the week, we had this huge mural. So we like to do things in the city, not just in the convention center. Here's another beautiful example of Heidi's work. So this was in Atlanta in 2021. And our public exhibit celebrated people who are hands-on doing the care in our member communities. And this was in Centennial Park, and scale matters. So we knew these were going to be in this huge park, and that they had to be very unique, very large scale to get attention, and they were. This is an example of those really beautiful, beautiful photography exhibit. Turn a lemon into lemonade was kind of the lesson with this example. So sometimes our art and our creative elements are solving a functional problem. And so we look at a functional problem and we think, okay, how do I make this intentional? How do I make it be something I'm meant to do, and the jumping off point for a creative idea? And so in Denver, our members had to walk down a long hallway to get to the keynote room. And we were kind of, worried about, okay, are they gonna is this going to be a negative thing that they have to walk so far? And so we put performance artists every so many feet performing, and different ones every day. So they would get a little bit further and they would see somebody. And then towards the end, over the course of the 3 days, we had a muralist be painting a mural down this big long wall. And the words were actually kind of tied to our strategic plan and kind of messages that we were putting into the general session content. But this is a way that we were trying to make, again, a lemon into lemonade. We were trying to make this long hallway actually be intentional. It's something we wanted to do. So people came out of the general session at the very close on the last day, and the mural was completed. So they got a sort of a little surprise.
Sharon,
do you mind? Oh, we both didn't say the same thing. Do you mind clicking from current slide and making this screen a little bit bigger?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. You got it. Better?
Perfect, thank you.
yeah, we can see it better. Thank you.
Okay, sure. And I can absolutely share this deck as well. So give back, create community. This is an example. We always try to do a service project every year. So this one, we were making blankets for homeless in Denver. And so we created community where people kind of came together, people who didn't even know each other, sit down when they had a few minutes. It's also like a great way to bring in some quiet time. Conferences are so big and there's so much going on, and you have a lot of different sort of personality types who have all different sort of tolerances around that kind of activity, sort of like high energy. And so this was a great way to, sort of create a small group, small intimate conversation while giving back. And then we try to leverage trends to accelerate our goals. So this was an exhibit we did in 2016 in downtown Indianapolis, and it was all about like the adult coloring book craze. And so we actually rented this space in the Indiana Colts tailgate, and we had this mural drawn, and as people and there was all sort of positive aging messages within the coloring book. And then we gave out actually like little hand coloring books that people could take with them. And then it had an anti-ageism pledge on the back, and the servicemen you see at the bottom were actually signing the pledge, and we snapped their picture. And then on the right is goat yoga. Like that was another time we did that in 2018. We worked with one of our sponsors to offer goat yoga, which again, sort of capitalizing on a trend. And that ideas come from everywhere. So last year, one of the graduates from the Leadership Academy we happened to find out that she was a Broadway singer at some point in her life. And so we had her perform as part of that ceremony, and flew her parents in to surprise them, to surprise her with her parents there. And so it was a really special moment. But like again, these ideas come from everywhere. Like somebody called me up and let me know that that she happened to do, she happened to professionally sing. And then you saw a sort of better image of this, but this is last year. So this particular image is what we called our artist loft. I told you everybody I transformed people into attending an art gallery. Well, we said, what if we had real artists, resident artists actually doing art right there while people were attending the conference? And so this idea came from a member who gave me the idea. And we had resident artists there all week doing different kinds of art. So this is like them engaging with some attendees. We had sculptures, there was painters, there was illustrators, all different kinds. There was a woman who did weaving during the week, really powerful. And then of course, this is our wonderful partnership with Art Against Ageism, how I met Jordan and Meg, or at least got to know them a little better. I've known them over the years, but got to know them a little better through this project. And we did this in Denver. And Meg, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about this one or if everybody's familiar with it.
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry, you did allude to earlier. That's what we call our Aging is Living tree. This is sort of what started Art Against Ageism. Actually, we put a tree in a nursing home that is a member of LeadingAge. It's called Keswick in Baltimore, and it's based on Yoko Ono's wish trees, which she has installed all over the world. There's actually one at the Smithsonian Institution outside, actually. So we just installed a tree and we put near it tags like you see hanging there. And on one side of the tag is a label with a question or a prompt. And we ask people to respond to them on the other side and hang it on the tree for everybody to see. And this is what our iteration of it at LeadingAge. Thanks, Sharon.
There's a link in the chat if you want to. We've created an infographic on how to create your own tree in your own little community. Or big community. So there is a link in the chat that you can go and check that out. Thanks for the plug, Sharon.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I'll let you go on.
And then I was just like, and we did this even virtually. So in 2020, when we did our virtual conference, people couldn't be in the same room, but we mailed everybody out boas and kind of fun little things that they could hold up and have a party. And, so we brought the party to them. So we did that, and yeah, and that's it.
Thank you, Sharon. So I have a question. Have you ever had a mishap or something where something didn't show up, or you had to make a pivot with regard to some of your creative and artistic endeavors? And what did you do?
Yes. So there have been so many mishaps. I couldn't even like literally there's one every year, and I have a couple of funny stories that I can tell, but I would say a couple of things about mishaps that I've learned. And first of all, you don't become a seasoned event strategist without mishaps, because if everything goes perfectly, you actually you never become good at what you're doing, because you become good because you've challenged, like any job, right? Anything that you get good because you made mistakes and learn from them. So I of course, I didn't feel it at the time, but I look back on things and think, thank goodness that happened. I think my most memorable one was very early at my time in LeadingAge. It was in 1997. We were in New Orleans, And I think why it was memorable, it was a series of mishaps, actually almost in the first day, like everything kind of happened in a day. So it started in the morning that, we had a marching band of 150 high school kids, and the kitchen didn't, prepare them breakfast, and there was nobody in the kitchen. So I had like 100 sort of really not happy teenagers who like were hungry and grumpy, performing in the general session. And then at 10 o'clock that day, if you can imagine a convention, how big an exhibit hall is, and this event was in hall A, and I was walking past hall C, and I saw the line, and it was the line for coffee for an event where people were, and they had coffee for like 200 people, and they had one station for the creamer and the sugar and the whatever. So that happened at 10. And then I walked back into the exposition, and I found out from our security that theft had come in the night before, and they wiped out every exhibitor's prizes, all of their laptops. Like somebody had come through the exhibit hall and like wiped it out. So all of that theft had happened. And then what the security guard said to me, the head of security, was, we're a visual deterrent. We're not an insurance company. I'm like, well, what were you visually deterring? Because the entire exhibit hall has been wiped out. And then at 3 o'clock that day, the toilets stopped working in our section of the exhibit hall, in our section of the convention center. There was something going on with the plumbing. So we had to put like signs on. It was just like, we had to come up with that. And by this point, you can imagine I am mentally exhausted. You know what I mean? Like, you are just like, so then we used to have a big block party that was like 3,000 people, and we fed everybody dinner. And so we hired this amazing, we did it out in Mardi Gras world, where they store all the floats. And the caterer did not pre-cook the food. He was cooking it to order for 3,000 people. So there was not enough food. And so, and there was a bus mishap. And I would say the moral of that very long story is that I learned that I will never forget, is that don't be so busy fixing the problem that you don't communicate. I was so busy at every single one of those junctures fixing the problem, I failed to communicate, which made the problem so much bigger and so much worse than it was. You know what I mean? So that's the lesson with that. But I would say that's probably my like most, and then I have a couple other funny stories that we have time I can tell you about. But yeah, I hope that's probably my best mishap story.
That is scary. But
It
I
is.
mean, it's so funny. That's leadership, like transparent leadership. You've got to communicate. You can't just handle everything. You can't just handle everything to yourself.
Yeah. If I would have just actually got on a microphone and said, hey guys, here's what's going on, go get a drink, food will be ready, which I totally would do now. That would have been like a non-issue, right? And then I would say what I said before, which is like, every issue you're facing is really an opportunity for creativity, like to do something with it, to make it look intentional, like make it, sort of say, what can be done here that's actually a good thing? Like, and so I try to approach sort of things I know about in that way. But,
Well,
things are going to happen.
We have a few more questions, but there is a question in the chat that was dropped to you, and so we'll ask that. Are there some cool installations that you look forward to in Nashville? And I'll kind of tag this in with our other question we were already going to ask, which is, what's your favorite? Like, what has been your most favorite installations or themes that you've done? And then what's your favorite that you're looking forward to in Nashville?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think if I'm among artists, everybody would probably feel this way, is like, my favorite is always the one I just did. You know what I mean? Like, so going into Denver, the outdoor, creating that outdoor environment was like my favorite thing. I thought it was super cool. And, the art trees and the real trees mixed in. And last year, I just love the art gallery space. Like I was like, oh my God, I don't think we're ever going to do better than this. Is like amazing. And so I think my favorite one's going to be Nashville, like, cause I know it's going to be my favorite one. So I'm super jazzed about that. Nashville actually is probably my favorite convention city. I'm not supposed to have a favorite, but it is. And it's my favorite place to do a meeting because it has so much built in stuff to work with, creative stuff to work with. I mean, the music everywhere you go, it does so much of the lifting for you, and it's so fun to actually take, to not start from like raw scratch when you have a city that doesn't really have that strong of a brand or sort of that strong of an identity. And the convention center is kind of white and boxy and you have to like go in and create something. Like Nashville's their convention center is probably one of the most beautiful in the country. It's shaped like a guitar. So itself as a building, it's beautiful. Like if you look at it from the roof, it's all wood and shaped like an acoustic guitar. It's gorgeous. And yeah, so I think Nashville is going to be really great. So we, if we talk a little bit about process, I would tell you, I do have a couple of cool things. We have a lot of cool things planned for Nashville. But one of the things about the creative process for LeadingAge and for me personally is that ideas come from everywhere, and I kind of think of ideas at this phase. I just let them come in. They're like balloons where I sort of, as the balloon comes in, I let it kind of float to the ceiling and kind of come into the room. And they're all different colors and they're all different shapes. And I mean, there are ideas around that members bring to me. There are ideas that are about like what we talked about today about trends. There's ideas with partnerships like Art Against Ageism bring to us. There's ones from really passionate members like, from like our ed committee and different ones like that. There's ones that help us drive revenue. There's ones that, solve functional problems. And so if I'm not I have to let them all come and kind of float before I start grouping the balloons together. Because really the best creative ideas experience-wise actually do multiple things. They enhance a partnership and do shared goals. They sort of push your strategic plan and the goals of LeadingAge. They solve a functional problem. And if I start to pick the balloons too quickly before they all come in and I sort of see how I can group them together, then I don't accomplish that. I just have a bunch of like individual balloons that don't really have any sort of connection to one another and aren't as impactful as if I group them together smartly. So I'm kind of at the phase of the process where I have all these, like, I'm still filling the room with different color balloons. And so there's a lot of really cool balloons. I'm just not sure yet how they're all going to work together yet, because I'm kind of in that part of the process. Does that like make sense to everyone?
Big time. Yes.
Mhm.
Finding the muse is
Yeah.
so hard in art. And sometimes the muse is elusive and you look. And I want to know, have you ever walked into a space and just laid on the ground and just like looked and just tried to feel it?
Yeah, not laid on the ground, but the space definitely talks to us. Like I was telling Megan you this yesterday, we actually completely change our schedule events based on the building. So we're very space oriented, like how we look at how people flow through the space, where they're coming in, whether or not the general session is before the exhibit hall or the ed sessions are first or what happens. Believe it or not, that's not just about, oh, what did the survey say? That's because the building and the space is talking to us. And I really care about how people are going to flow through the building. And so, when I talk to somebody about where you should, like they have an idea and it's like, where should I put it? I'm really thinking about, okay, people are going to come out or are people going to stop and do this? What are people doing at that time? You know what I mean? So I do absolutely let the building talk to us. We go to book it 8 to 10 years out. Then we go again 18 months out, and that's when we do the schedule and all that. And then in January, the year of the meeting, we really do a lot of planning, and we experience map the entire event. So, you know, we definitely have to have, you know, that's one of the big sort of factors we take into account, like the building, the space.
So thank you, Sharon. We have another question. This is that just popped in. I like how you describe partnerships to spark magic. Have you engaged young artists from high school, college to build excitement for creativity and create interest? And how can they shape positive perceptions of aging? I assume you've done that, and you've utilized, of course, older adults. So
Yes.
how have
Yes.
you described briefly, you did mention that you had high school bands, but
yeah. And we had the project on the mosaic on that furniture, that was actually artists, you know, from and like a scout troop, and there was some art, there was definitely some art. I think the coolest thing we did with college students was do you guys remember that show Trading Spaces?
yes.
Okay. So one year we had 3 white boxes, and they had to do an affordable senior housing apartment. And we had young interior design students like work with elders, and we gave them $2,000 each, and they had to like kind of go and they took a little summer course on elders and like their needs and universal design. And then they designed the room, and then the attendees voted on their favorite senior apartment. So that was probably like one of my favorite. And every time we've done a project with students, it achieved what I don't know who asked that question, but it achieved that exact, we permanently changed them. Some of those people to this day, you know, like totally changed what they were going to do, and they're working with older adults. We did another one. We did a hack fest where we did teams of students with some providers and an elder champion, and they had to come up with a piece of technology to help older adults, and then we Shark Tanked it. And all of those students and we had like different sort of students who played different roles on the team. And we totally transformed most of those kids like told us later that, you know, it totally changed how they feel about older people. So we love doing intergenerational work. Love it, love it, love it. So anybody who has any ideas, I'd love to hear them. So definitely send them my way for Nashville.
Thanks, Sharon. So we're getting close to time, but you know, we learned, Sharon, that before we started, that LeadingAge actually has had the issue of tackling ageism in its vision since 2011, you said? So that's a long time. And so how do you think that came about? And then how did that translate into you creating all of these really, you know, artistic endeavors that tackled ageism and advanced positive age beliefs?
Yeah. So when we were going through the rebranding process in like 2010, where we were taking a hard look at, you know, who we are, you know, how we tell the world who we are. So who do we want to be? How do we tell the world who we are? And the board went through that process. And as part of that process, the name, the American Association of Homes and Services for the Aging sort of was one of the things they sort of identified as not really fitting who we are, and we became LeadingAge. And they looked at the mission and vision statement as part of that process, and being the trusted voice for aging was identified as the overarching mission of LeadingAge. That's really our reason for being, and that the board felt that America freed from ageism is the right vision, because they felt like every challenge, every sort of barrier that we have to make America a better place to grow old, at the end of the day, comes down to ageism. You know, like if funds would be there and resources would be there if people valued older adults. Fair regulation that sort of put people first, put elders first, would be in existence if people valued older people. You know what I mean? Like, so if you look at every challenge we had, if people valued older people and there wasn't ageism, like, we wouldn't have that problem. So that's why they made that our vision statement, because your vision statement's obviously supposed to be like, when you achieve it, you no longer need to exist because you've achieved this. And so, so we're taking another look at that now. I was telling Meg that we're about to start our new 2024 strategic plan, and we're kind of looking at, is there a more positive way to say that as opposed to ageism, like kind of flipping it to the positive. So it's going to be that sort of centered on the same thing, but it may be worded a little bit more positively when it comes out.
Great.
I do want to shout out Kathy's comment about just how important partnering with local colleges and early childhood development, school teachers, students, to be interns in long-term care and elder care communities, to show them elder care as a career option. And that has heard of, and Kathy, you have heard of people shifting. I would love that, because I'd love to see more. I hate being like the only person in their 20s in a senior living conference myself. But yeah, go ahead. I think, Meg, you had one more question for us.
No, I actually don't. Well, I do. I mean, I do. Why do you think that it's important to create these places in the spaces that you have your conferences?
When people come to events, they're giving you hours and sometimes days, not just seconds, right? And they're getting in an airplane, they're getting in a car, they're giving you their two most valuable things, their time and their money. And I feel like I'm honored, and I feel like there's an obligation to make that the most beautiful, perfect time that they can spend when they do that. And to make it inspirational and powerful. And I think that's different than any other medium, like to have that kind of investment that they're giving you. And so sort of, I feel like that's why it's really important that we value that, and we make sure what we give back to them is the best it possibly can be. So I would say that is, I think, the reason. But I do want to just do one little sneak peek of something we're doing in Nashville that is a balloon that has landed that we can share, which is, Heidi, can you talk a little bit about your photography project that we're going to be featuring? And I can say a little bit about where it's going to be, but do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Oh, I'm very excited to hear that this is a sure thing. We haven't talked recently. I received some funding. I do a project called the Passions Project. So it's a photo series of older adults doing their passions as a way of redefining aging and creating community and conversation. So I recently received some grant funding to do a project that featured LGBTQ plus elders, and well, not just elders, but people in the community that I live in. I live in Racine, Wisconsin. And part of the reason that project was really important to me is, like, I grew up in Racine, but I left and moved away from Racine when I was about 19 years old, because I didn't feel I could come out and be my true self there. So I left to kind of do that to somewhere else. So coming home and being able to do this project in Racine was really great. But within that project, I had about 7 people that were over the age of 50. So those photos are going to be coming to the convention in Nashville, and we're going to be doing some programming around highlighting and talking about the stories of LGBTQ plus elders.
Yeah, so there's going to be a special little lounge area that's down by the education session rooms that we're calling kind of the quiet meditation space. So it's this great place where people can go and like spend time in this space, and it'll be kind of a little away from the hustle and bustle of everything. I think it's the perfect sort of alcove that we found that would be great for Heidi's work.
I appreciate it, Sharon, because that's a really exciting opportunity to really highlight not just stories of elders, but those that have multiple intersections as far as gender identity, race, and also aging. So I'm so excited that's coming to the conference. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So really big shout out to anyone who has ideas to share. I will, Jordan, I don't know if you can, but if you put my email address in the chat so everyone can, like I said, ideas come from everywhere and I'd love to hear yours. That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this tonight, is to have all your creative minds help put some more balloons in the room. Ooh, no, Tony,
Yep.
tell me about that.
Yeah, I've
So-
not heard of it.
So this was, I'm a relocated New Yorker from Western New York, Buffalo, and I've seen these art initiative projects duplicated where they will engage various groups, nonprofits, artists, anybody, but they have these large, oversized chairs. And you're familiar with them maybe, but there'll be a theme. And the artists or organizations use their creativity to decorate them or paint them or make them, okay, to promote the organization. So case in point, if you were up in Rochester and you went to the AAA baseball team, the Red Wings, you will see this gigantic chair in the causeway, totally made out of baseball gloves.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's
they
so
had
cool.
and they call it whatever the theme is, that's like on parade, right? So it could be snowmen on parade. It could be scarecrows. In my local little community in Gowanda, south of Buffalo, it was scarecrows on parade. And everybody would, and you really saw the most unusual and creative applications of it. And then they would have an auction. So then when you go into your bank or into your library or doctor's office, there's the chair, right, with the descriptor of who made it and how they did it. And it just kind of raised the level of awareness of that particular initiative. And I wasn't sure if there was anything that was done like that around these conferences or in these communities to really bring a focus on the driving issue of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially in the longevity economy. And, we've heard this before, you rest, you rust. And there's just a lot of encore careers and kind of like renewed passion that I'm seeing with persons, over 50 that are just exploding with opportunities to create and contribute. And I thought that'd be kind of a neat way of bringing attention and engaging other people to say, how do we help?
Yeah, I love it.
So-
I love that idea. That is really cool. I'm gonna Google that a little bit.
And that's why when you were talking about the Boy Scouts, that's what I thought that was, but it looks like that was just a part of a bigger exhibit about furniture. But this is all about chairs. And then in my community and in Rochester, you'd be driving down Interstate 490, and right there in the median, boom, there's a chair.
Yeah. I
And they have
love
them
that they
everywhere.
made it out of that. Like, and are the chairs all different or do they all look the same? Because I think somebody put this in the chat, like the cows and stuff, but this sounds like they actually, are the chairs all kind of different or are they the same
I think
chair?
the chairs have to fit like whatever the dimensions are, right?
Mhm.
But that's the end of it.
Yeah, cool.
Because it's just wide open to whatever your mind can imagine. And I mean,
Yeah.
personally, I love baseball, but I mean, the baseball mitt, the baseball glove chair, everybody's there to get their photo taken.
Mhm.
And it's just a really, Spikes is the mascot, you know what I mean? And it's just, and there's always with some of those gloves, there's a rich history of baseball in Rochester. And,
Yeah.
and it brought the community together. These projects have a tendency to really rally the community. And in
Absolutely.
my little town of Gowanda, not to spend too much time on this, but it was really part of a fundraising initiative to save a historic movie theater that was originally an opera house. So it was all connected to a
Nice.
bigger goal.
That's
So,
really nice.
yeah.
Love it.
That's fantastic. Beth, you raised your hand. I think
Unmute, hey, that sounds awesome. And that's kind of the circles I'm in a lot. And it made me think in the intergenerational connections piece, so many people who are retired or in that next chapter like to build things, and to work with high school students together to build as a project. So that would be a great community engagement activity that
Mhm.
extends even before. And so, that's like, I'm the art educator of the year emeritus in North Carolina. And so that's like all the stuff that I work on. And then I also thought of, since it's, Music City and everything, that's that same thing of different schools, somehow older people working with younger people to write songs and, about memories and, really creating in that. And there's plenty of opportunities to have that recorded and produced in a really great way. And it could really shine. I was the arts and health advisor for in Durham, it's called the Bull City. And so it's this growing music festival. And Harvey Mason Jr., CEO of the Grammys, was the opening keynote speaker. And that was like mind-boggling to me. But these things can just happen. And I love seeing young people get the opportunity to work with a seasoned professional and how that impacts the school community and their families and,
Yeah.
pathway and all that. That's like a great value that to me is not in like the anti-aging mode. It's in the generative, creative, caring for one another and producing possible income and fundraising and everything too.
So you're an example, Beth, of like why the balloons like float for a little bit, because one of the ideas that's out there right now is this whole idea of song project, where we would actually have a song created that's a gift that members get at the end and they can have the rights to it. And we were going to do songwriting workshops with elders and professional musicians all around the country, have three to five songs hit the finalists. And then, like on the Academy Awards, how like throughout the Academy Awards show, they play the scores and you pick one at the end, they announce at the end. So we were going to do that at the opening session. The 3 songs get played throughout the opening general session. The members vote on their app, and then we announce the winning song. But the intergenerational piece, I did not think of. So having that not just be elders working with the musician, but having kids and elders work with the musician, the songwriter, would be super cool and create an intergenerational element. But that's again, like,
teachers are always looking for great opportunities to connect in the community too. So it's sort of as a tie-in with that, to have opportunities for their students to do something similar on a smaller scale, because that it happens a lot. But to be affiliated with what LeadingAge is just another really great thing, because it doesn't come to Nashville every year or anything. So it's just like special, and we need that. Teachers need that special and good.
That's great. Great.
Very much.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. It's so crazy. We've come up in time, and every time I'm just like, oh shoot, it's 6 o'clock. And I just want to thank you, everyone. I dropped a link to artagainstageism.org if you loved this, and we are excited again for Sharon coming on and giving us a sneak peek of what's to come in next year's conference. Super excited about that. And so also at LeadingAge, is it leadingage.org?
Yep, leadingage.org/annual meeting for annual meeting stuff, but
And I did drop Sharon's email. So if you want to be one of those balloons that possibly goes up
Yeah.
and possibly lands, then feel free to email Sharon. And also shout out to Tony. We're both Eric's school alumni ourselves. So we're very proud to have our actually we met at the Erickson School. Like Meg was my professor. If people don't know like how we met, Meg was my
Aw.
professor and we just started this thing. So thank you everyone for joining us. This has been awesome. Thank you, Sharon. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your week.
And just
Thank
FYI,
you.
both of you are on my list for storytelling. So
Awesome.
I will be reaching out to you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thank you.
you.
Nice
Bye.
meeting you, Beth.
Thank you.